Have you ever wished you could grow food in your garden without having to replant everything year after year? While most vegetables complete their life cycle in a single season, some incredible perennial crops only need to be planted once and will continue rewarding you with harvest for many years, sometimes even for decades. In today's video, we'll explore 7 amazing perennial food plants that produce harvests year after year, much like fruit trees. Once these crops are established, they return every growing season, require very little maintenance, and often become even more productive as they mature. Some thrive in freezing winters, others flourish in hot, dry climates, but every plant on this list offers an easy way to grow more food while spending less time and effort in the garden. Stick around until the end. You might discover a few perennial crops that completely change the way you think about growing your own food. 1. Serviceberry. If you're looking for a plant that offers both outstanding ornamental value and dependable harvests, serviceberry deserves a place at the top of your list. Although it's often overshadowed by more familiar fruit trees, this remarkable plant has been grown for generations because of its beauty, resilience, and generous crops. Known by names such as Juneberry, Saskatoon berry, and shadbush, serviceberry is native to much of North America and adapts well to many different climates. Once established, it behaves much like a fruit tree, rewarding gardeners with abundant harvests every year while requiring very little maintenance. One of the first signs of spring is often the explosion of delicate white blossoms that cover its branches before many other trees have even begun to leaf out. These early flowers brighten the landscape after winter while providing an essential source of nectar for bees, butterflies, and other beneficial pollinators emerging at the start of the growing season. As the weather warms, those blossoms gradually transform into clusters of berries. The fruit slowly changes from green to red, then finally ripens into a deep blue-purple color. At first glance, they resemble blueberries, but their flavor is even more distinctive. Many gardeners describe the taste as a delicious blend of blueberry, sweet cherry, and a light almond-like finish. The berries are incredibly versatile in the kitchen. They're delicious straight from the tree, but they're equally suited for pies, muffins, jams, syrups, smoothies, sauces, baked goods, and even dried snacks. Their naturally sweet flavor makes them a favorite for both fresh eating and preserving. Another reason gardeners appreciate serviceberry is its excellent productivity. Mature trees produce reliable harvests every season, and yields often become heavier as the tree ages. Unlike many traditional fruit trees, serviceberries usually don't require constant spraying, complicated pruning, or intensive maintenance, making them an ideal choice for low-maintenance edible landscapes. Adaptability is another major advantage. Serviceberry tolerates freezing winters, warm summers, and a wide range of soil conditions. Once established, it naturally develops an attractive shape with very little pruning, making it both beautiful and easy to grow. The tree also provides year-round interest. Spring begins with clouds of white blossoms, summer brings lush green foliage and heavy crops of berries, autumn transforms the leaves into brilliant shades of orange, scarlet, and gold, and winter reveals an elegant branching structure that continues adding beauty even after the leaves have fallen. Wildlife loves serviceberry just as much as gardeners do. Birds are especially fond of the fruit and often discover the ripening berries before people do. In many gardens, protecting the harvest with netting becomes the biggest challenge because birds quickly recognize when the fruit is ready. Perhaps its greatest strength is its longevity. A healthy serviceberry can remain productive for decades, becoming more valuable with each passing year while contributing food, beauty, and biodiversity to the landscape. For anyone wanting a productive perennial crop that's just as attractive as it is useful, serviceberry is an outstanding investment. Plant it once, care for it during its early years, and it can reward you with beautiful flowers, delicious fruit, and reliable harvests for decades. 2. Elderberry. Few perennial crops become more rewarding as they mature than elderberry. While most garden vegetables need to be replanted every year, elderberry establishes itself as a permanent part of the landscape and continues producing abundant harvests season after season. Native to both North America and Europe, it naturally grows as a vigorous multi-stemmed shrub or small tree that becomes increasingly productive with age while requiring surprisingly little maintenance. One of elderberry's biggest advantages is its toughness. It adapts well to many different soil types, tolerates cold winters with ease, and responds extremely well to pruning. Although it grows best in fertile soil and full sun, It's generally much more forgiving than many traditional fruit trees, making it an excellent choice for gardeners of all experience levels. Each spring, elderberry produces vigorous new shoots that quickly develop into lush green growth. As summer approaches, the branches become covered with large, creamy white flower clusters that not only create an impressive display, but also attract countless bees, butterflies, and other pollinating insects. As the flowers fade, they give way to heavy clusters of glossy, dark purple-black berries. Mature shrubs are capable of producing remarkable harvests, with some plants carrying so much fruit that the branches bend beneath the weight. Elderberries have been harvested for centuries and remain one of the most versatile fruits available. They're commonly used to make syrups, jams, jellies, wines, teas, juices, and a wide variety of homemade recipes. In recent years, they've also gained widespread attention because of their naturally high antioxidant content and their long history of use in traditional herbal remedies. Another reason gardeners appreciate elderberry is how quickly it begins producing meaningful harvests. Unlike some fruit trees that require years before bearing fruit, elderberries often begin cropping much sooner, particularly when planted from nursery-grown shrubs or rooted cuttings. As the plants continue growing, productivity steadily improves. Larger shrubs develop more flowering stems each year, resulting in increasingly generous berry harvests with very little extra effort from the gardener. Elderberry also plays an important ecological role. Its blossoms provide nectar for pollinators during the flowering season, while its berries become an important food source for birds later in the year. Because it supports wildlife at multiple stages of its life cycle, elderberry is a valuable addition to food forests, pollinator gardens, and natural landscapes. Its long lifespan is one of its greatest strengths. Once established, elderberry returns reliably every spring, producing flowers, fruit, and vigorous new growth for decades. Each season it becomes larger, more productive, and more valuable to both gardeners and local wildlife. That's why elderberry behaves much like a dependable fruit tree. It's long-lived, incredibly productive, easy to grow, and capable of supplying beautiful flowers and generous berry harvests year after year with relatively little maintenance. Plant it once, give it a good start, and it may continue rewarding you for decades to come. 3. Ground cherries. Ground cherries are one of gardening's best-kept secrets. Although they aren't nearly as well known as tomatoes, blueberries, or strawberries, gardeners who grow them often become lifelong fans. Technically, they're grown as annuals in many regions, but thanks to their remarkable ability to reseed themselves, they frequently return year after year with almost no effort. Once established, they often create a self-sustaining patch that continues producing season after season. The plants produce small golden fruits hidden inside delicate papery husks that resemble tiny lanterns. These natural coverings protect the fruit, while it ripens and also let you know exactly when it's ready to harvest. Unlike many fruits that must be picked directly from the plant, ground cherries usually harvest themselves. Once fully ripe, the fruits naturally fall to the ground, making collection incredibly easy. Instead of searching through the branches, gardeners simply gather the ripe fruits from beneath the plants. Their flavor is unlike almost anything else grown in a home garden. Many people find it difficult to compare ground cherries to a single fruit because they combine several flavors at once. Most describe them as a delicious blend of pineapple, mango, vanilla, citrus, and even a slight hint of tomato, creating a rich tropical sweetness that's both unique and memorable. Productivity is another reason these plants are so highly valued. A single healthy plant can produce hundreds of fruits during one growing season. As summer progresses, the branches become covered with dozens of lantern-like husks, each hiding another ripening fruit inside. Harvests continue for weeks and often months, providing a steady supply of fresh fruit long after many other crops begin slowing down. Perhaps one of their greatest advantages is their ability to take care of themselves. As ripe fruits fall to the ground and eventually break down, they naturally release their seeds into the soil. In many climates, those seeds survive the winter and sprout on their own the following spring. Before long, gardeners often discover volunteer seedlings appearing throughout the garden without planting a single seed. In warmer regions, this natural reseeding process can create a permanent patch that renews itself every year, making ground cherries feel much more like a perennial crop than a traditional annual vegetable. These plants are also impressively adaptable. They tolerate many different soil types, grow well in average garden soil, and handle moderate drought surprisingly well once their roots become established. Compared to many fruiting crops that require frequent pruning, fertilizing, and pest control, ground cherries ask for very little while rewarding gardeners with exceptionally generous harvests. Their usefulness doesn't stop in the garden. The fruits are delicious fresh right out of their husks, but they're also excellent for making jams, preserves, pies, sauces, desserts, smoothies, and dried snacks. Their naturally sweet flavor makes them especially popular with children, who often enjoy hunting for the hidden fruits scattered beneath the plants. Over time, many gardeners stop thinking of ground cherries as annual vegetables and begin treating them as a dependable food source that simply keeps coming back on its own. For anyone looking for a productive, low-maintenance crop that practically replants itself, ground cherries are one of the easiest and most rewarding choices you can grow. 4. Rhubarb. Rhubarb is one of the best examples of a plant that rewards patience for years to come. Unlike most vegetables that need to be replanted every season, rhubarb behaves much like a fruit tree. Once it becomes established, it returns every spring bigger, stronger, and even more productive, often supplying harvests for decades with very little effort. Its bold appearance makes it impossible to overlook. Huge leaves rise from thick stalks that range in color from bright green to deep crimson, depending on the variety. The plant creates an impressive focal point while also producing one of the earliest edible harvests of the year. Although the leaves should never be eaten because they contain high levels of oxalic acid, the stalks are prized for their unique tart flavor. For generations, gardeners have harvested them for pies, jams, crumbles, sauces, preserves, and countless desserts. Their natural acidity pairs especially well with sweet fruits like strawberries, creating one of the most classic flavor combinations in home baking. One of rhubarb's greatest advantages is its remarkable longevity. Beneath the soil lies a thick underground crown that stores energy from one season to the next. As the crown expands over the years, the plant becomes increasingly vigorous, producing thicker stalks and larger harvests every spring. Because of this stored energy, rhubarb is often one of the very first edible crops to emerge after winter. While tomatoes, peppers, cucumbers, and many other vegetables are still weeks away from planting, rhubarb is already sending up fresh stalks ready for harvest. That early productivity makes it especially valuable for gardeners eager to enjoy homegrown food as soon as the growing season begins. Another reason for its popularity is its dependability. Once established, rhubarb asks for very little attention. It tolerates severe winters, rarely suffers from major pest problems, and can thrive in the same location for many years without losing productivity. As older crowns continue expanding, they can be divided every few years. This not only rejuvenates mature plants, but also provides new crowns that can be replanted elsewhere or shared with family and friends. Many gardeners are surprised by just how long a single planting can remain productive. Plants that are 10 or 20 years old are quite common, and some historic gardens still contain rhubarb patches that have been producing harvests for generations. Very few edible plants offer such an incredible return from a single planting. If you're creating a low-maintenance food garden designed to provide harvests year after year, rhubarb remains one of the most reliable and rewarding crops you can grow. Plant it once, care for it during establishment, and it may continue feeding your family for decades. 5. Jerusalem artichokes, sunchokes. Despite their name, Jerusalem artichokes have nothing to do with Jerusalem and are only distantly related to globe artichokes. Better known as sunchokes, these remarkable plants belong to the sunflower family and produce large quantities of edible tubers beneath the soil. When it comes to dependable perennial food crops, very few plants can match their productivity. Rather than behaving like a typical vegetable, Jerusalem artichokes function almost like a self-renewing food system. Once planted, they continue multiplying underground and producing larger harvests every year with very little attention. Above ground, they make an impressive statement. By late summer, their sturdy stems often reach heights of 8 to 12 feet, forming dense green walls that can even serve as natural privacy screens. Toward the end of the season, bright yellow flowers resembling miniature sunflowers appear, adding beauty while attracting bees, butterflies, and countless beneficial insects. Below the surface lies the real reward. The plants develop clusters of knobby tubers packed with nutrients and dietary fiber. Unlike potatoes, which store starch, Jerusalem artichokes contain large amounts of inulin, a different type of carbohydrate that has made them increasingly popular among health-conscious gardeners. Their productivity is truly remarkable. Even a handful of tubers can multiply into a substantial harvest within a single season. A small planting often produces many times the original quantity, making them one of the highest-yielding perennial food crops available. Harvest usually begins after the first frost, which improves both flavor and texture. Many gardeners simply leave the tubers in the ground throughout winter and dig them whenever needed. In effect, the soil becomes a natural storage system, keeping the crop fresh until harvest time. These plants are incredibly resilient. They tolerate poor soil, drought, neglect, and many environmental conditions that would challenge other vegetables. Once established, they rarely require fertilizer and seldom experience serious pest or disease problems. Their vigorous growth is both an advantage and something to plan for. Tiny pieces of tuber left in the ground after harvest often produce new plants the following spring. While some gardeners consider this persistence a nuisance, many appreciate it because it guarantees future harvest with almost no extra work. Like a dependable fruit tree, Jerusalem artichokes become more reliable every season. Give them enough room to spread, and they'll reward you with abundant harvest for years while requiring surprisingly little maintenance. For gardeners searching for a productive, long-lived perennial crop, they're one of the best investments you can make. 6. Horseradish. Horseradish may not receive as much attention as berry bushes or fruit trees, but when it comes to toughness and long-term productivity, few edible plants can compete with it. Once planted, horseradish establishes itself permanently, returning every year stronger than before while asking for very little care. During the growing season, the plant produces large, lush green leaves that quickly fill their space in the garden. While the foliage is attractive, the true harvest lies beneath the surface. Underground, horseradish develops thick, powerful roots that continue growing larger year after year. These roots have been valued for centuries because of their intense flavor. When freshly grated or crushed, they release natural compounds that produce a sharp, nose-clearing heat, unlike almost any other food. Unlike chili peppers, whose heat lingers on the tongue, horseradish creates a powerful burst of flavor that rises quickly through the nose before fading away. That unmistakable flavor has made horseradish an essential ingredient in sauces, marinades, condiments, and traditional recipes around the world. Its incredible resilience is one of its greatest strengths. Horseradish tolerates freezing winters, drought, poor soil, and even occasional neglect with little difficulty. While many vegetables struggle under harsh conditions, this hardy perennial continues growing almost effortlessly. Every spring, fresh shoots emerge from its extensive underground root system, often producing even stronger plants than the year before. One characteristic that truly sets horseradish apart is its ability to regenerate. Small root pieces left behind during harvest quickly develop into entirely new plants, allowing a single planting to remain productive for many years without replanting. Experienced gardeners often joke that growing horseradish is easy, but getting rid of it is nearly impossible. Its adaptability is equally impressive. It grows successfully in heavy clay, sandy soil, cold northern climates, and regions with unpredictable rainfall. Unlike many vegetables that demand frequent watering and constant attention, horseradish is content to thrive almost on its own. Roots are usually harvested in autumn after they've had an entire season to grow. Gardeners typically dig the largest roots while leaving smaller sections in the ground to fuel next year's crop, creating a sustainable cycle that can continue indefinitely. Historically, horseradish was valued not only for its bold flavor but also for its natural preserving qualities before modern refrigeration existed. Today it remains popular for exactly the same reasons that made it valuable centuries ago. It's hardy, productive, low maintenance, and capable of providing harvest for decades from a single planting. For anyone building a self-sustaining edible garden, horseradish is one of the easiest perennial crops to recommend. Plant it once, allow it room to grow, and it can continue rewarding you for many years. 7. Egyptian walking onions. Imagine growing onions that practically plant themselves every year. It might sound unbelievable, but that's exactly what makes Egyptian walking onions one of the most unusual and dependable perennial crops you can grow. Unlike ordinary onions that produce flowers and seeds before dying, these remarkable plants reproduce in a completely different way, allowing them to return season after season with almost no help from the gardener. Instead of developing traditional flowers, mature plants produce clusters of small bulbs, known as bulbils, at the tops of their tall stalks. These tiny bulbs act as the plant's main method of reproduction, replacing seeds altogether. As the growing season progresses, the bulb clusters become larger and heavier. Eventually, their weight causes the stalks to bend until the bulbils touch the ground. Once they make contact with the soil, they quickly begin rooting and growing into brand new plants. Over time, this unusual process allows the patch to slowly spread across the garden, giving the impression that the onions are literally walking from one place to another. This fascinating habit is exactly how they earned the name walking onions. Because they reproduce naturally, Egyptian walking onions are among the most self-sufficient edible plants available. A single planting gradually develops into a large colony without the need to sow seeds or purchase new plants each year. The patch continues renewing and expanding itself season after season with very little effort. Another major advantage is their incredible versatility. Nearly every part of the plant is edible. The young green shoots can be harvested like scallions or green onions, while the underground bulbs can be cooked and used just like traditional onions. Even the small bulbils that grow at the tops of the stalks are edible and can be roasted, sautéed, pickled, or replanted to create even more plants. This allows gardeners to harvest fresh food from the same planting throughout much of the growing season. Egyptian walking onions are also among the earliest crops to appear each spring. Long before many vegetables begin growing, fresh green shoots emerge from the soil, providing one of the first edible harvests after winter. That early growth is especially welcome for gardeners eager to enjoy fresh homegrown produce as soon as possible. Cold weather is rarely a problem for these incredibly hardy plants. They tolerate freezing temperatures, heavy snow, and severe winters with ease. Once established, they return every year without fail, and as the patch expands, it usually becomes even more productive. Maintenance requirements are minimal. Their strong onion aroma naturally discourages many common pests, while their vigorous growth allows them to recover quickly from occasional weather damage or browsing animals. Unlike annual onions that require careful sowing, transplanting, and replanting every season, Egyptian walking onions largely take care of themselves. That self-sufficient nature makes them especially valuable in permaculture gardens, food forests, and low-maintenance edible landscapes where long-term productivity is the goal. Beyond their usefulness, they also add a unique visual element to the garden. Their tall stems topped with clusters of miniature bulbs create an unusual appearance that often catches the attention of visitors. Many gardeners grow them not only for their dependable harvests, but also because they're one of the most fascinating plants in the vegetable garden. Perhaps their greatest strength is consistency. Year after year, they repeat the same reliable cycle of growth, multiplication, and harvest without demanding much attention. While ordinary onions require a fresh start every season, Egyptian walking onions simply continue expanding their patch and producing food generation after generation. If you're looking for a perennial crop that is productive, hardy, easy to grow, and practically replants itself, Egyptian walking onions are difficult to beat. Plant them once, give them a little space, and they'll continue rewarding you with fresh harvests for decades, while constantly creating the next generation of plants all on their own.